everyone, and welcome to this week's live stream. I am your host, Mod Light, and I am joined by the wonderful Mods Elena.
Hello.
Mods Husky.
Yeah.
And Mod West.
Hello.
Awesome. Today we are going to be talking about the Guardians of the Rift vlog, which, in case you haven't heard, is a new runecrafting minigame. So, first of all, welcome everyone. How are you all doing?
Do you want to go one at a time?
Go!
Okay.
Yeah, how's the week been?
Yeah, it's been good. We've been obviously working on Guardians of the Rift, and pretty happy with how far it's gone. As for how I'm doing right now, I was actually just out taking a blood test, so I'm a bit woozy, but I'll try to stay, try not to faint, essentially.
Gotta get your blood runes and your blood essence back up.
Yeah, I was joking about that earlier, right? The NHS is the true blood altar.
What? Yeah, for sure. Mod Husky, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Same thing, working on Guardians of the Rift, trying very hard not to keep saying Guardians of Gillinor, as it's been known for literally a year now. But yeah, it's going fine. Don't know what else to say.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've been focusing more on the quest element of it, so it's looking really, really cool. And Mod West, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I've been busy sinking my teeth into the outside of the Guardians of the Rift. Again, to be honest, I've been still calling it GOG. It's just an easier word to say than Gore. Gutter? I don't know. Yeah, and I'm doing good. Yeah, enjoying it.
Awesome. I'm loving the artwork that you've shared about it. It's really awesome. So yeah, today we are going to be discussing all things Guardians of the Rift. But first, I just want to go through a few announcements. So the first one is !bugs and issues. If you want to keep up to date with a list of ongoing issues and fixes with regards to Shattered Relics, check out our official news post to keep track of what's going on, get more insight into some of the changes that we're making. Next one is Guardians of the Rift, ! Guardians of the Rift, but I think we've also got a shortened version of ! GOTR, for those of you who don't want to type out the whole thing. It is time to talk about your favorite skill, runecraft. Everyone's favorite skill. We've been working on a brand new runecraft training method that we think you might like. Find out all you need to know in the new blog, and the blog has actually been updated today with your feedback and our response. And then we've got ! Game Update. The latest changes for Shattered Relics were in this week's game update. We've reduced a bunch of Sage Renown that's required to unlock skills and bosses. We've lowered some set activation values, as well as reducing some of the task requirements, so it should become a lot faster in the early game and be a lot more fun and enjoyable for those of you who had some feedback for us. So yeah, enjoy, let us know your feedback. And without further ado, we can just jump into the questions if everyone's cool. Awesome.
Let's do it.
So first question. These are some of the questions that I've gathered myself, but we'll try and get to some of your questions afterwards. So first question is that Guardians of the Rift was first mentioned back in the 2020 December Gazette. Can you talk a bit more about what aspects that you changed from the Gazette in 2020 to now?
So we've changed quite a bit from it, to be honest. It was first talked about because we had it as an ideation project, which basically means we had a couple of days where we could just come up with whatever we wanted. And we were like, okay, runecrafting kind of sucks. We want to make it better. And how can we do that? So we sat down, the three of us essentially, and came up with a cool idea for runecrafting. And obviously it took a while before it got to the point of we can now design it and all that. So we had a long time to really think about it, I guess. But the main changes have been to kind of make it a bit more, or adding more to the minigame itself. Because in our prototype that we showed off just internally to pitch the project, we kind of just kept the base rune crafting element and just didn't add much to it. You know, we added a bit of story, but what you were doing was essentially the same. You were mining essence, imbuing essence, and then taking it someplace. Normally to the altar, this time to the Great Guardian. And that's still, you know, part of the core loop, but then we added the whole, like, kind of almost like tower defense-esque element to it, where you also need to focus on keeping your defenses up. You need to protect the Guardian while also crafting runes. So there's a lot more to it now.
Feels very old school to me. Wes, were you involved in the original design back in 2020, I believe?
Yep.
What do you think about the changes?
Oh yeah, I think they're great. I think when we were designing it, was, I mean, we're trying to, you know, solve the runecraft problem. You know, it's not exactly the most enjoyable skill, so anything that just improves that sort of mechanical flow, it's good in my books. Yeah, looking forward to getting some playtesting in.
Me too. All right, next question. Can you guys just talk us through some of the basics of the minigame, just for anyone who hasn't kind of read the blog or seen the blog yet? I know that you touched on it, Elena, with the protecting and defending kind of elements, but just like a really brief overview, what can players expect? And anyone can answer, by the way.
Well, I'm on a streak now, so... yeah, like the core loop is basically what I said earlier, right? You obtain essence. You need to combine the essence that you find in this place with pure essence. So you need to bring pure essence with you, but there's a bank in there, so you can just have it in the bank. You combine the essence, you go through a rift or a portal to one of the runecrafting altars out in the world. And this is like an open world element. So let's say that I choose to go to the nature altar, and someone's actually there crafting nature runes. I could see them, and they could see me, while I'm playing the minigame, and they're just doing regular rune crafting, which I think is pretty cool.
That is so cool.
Once I've reviewed that. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my favourite parts of it as well, because just the idea of someone there just minding their own business doing some runecraft, and then suddenly the entire altar just gets raided by a bunch of people. They're just like, whoa, what's going on?
Like, exactly. Look, there's the Rift Guardians. So cool.
It's really cool.
There's also some interesting tech reasons why we can't instance it, really. I think the thing a lot of our players know is we can't have an instance open with no one in it, and if this minigame actively requires the player to leave the instance to go to another altar, yeah, we don't really want, you know, the instance for the game to not exist when you come back. So, yeah, I think the open world aspect is going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, you're basically having players teleporting to different areas of the game, which is super cool. On that topic of essence that you mentioned, I noticed a lot of players asking, will you be able to use Dale essence or, I don't know about blood essence, but will any other type of essence be usable in the minigame?
No, we've restricted it to only using pure essence, mainly because there's two aspects to it. There's one that is like, there's already a lot of essences, and mix and match of essences is maybe just confusing to some people. The other aspect is just balancing. It's way easier to balance based on just pure essence rather than adding a bunch of extra stuff. Because then you'll have, like, when you combine it with the existing, like, things that you find in this place, you create a new type of essence. So we need to make, like, different types of essence depending on what essence you combine it with, and that can get quite tricky and complicated as well.
The other thing as well is that just we kind of have done a thing. I don't really agree with it, but like a bunch of bosses just have like, oh yeah, have like 10k pure essence as a drop. Maybe not quite, but you get it, right? And we've got a lot of pure essence in the game, and just it's not really being used up. I think this adds a sort of nice dynamic where, you know, we'll be creating a reasonable item sink for the pure essence and an actual like method people are going to use for it. So yeah, like if chat want to buy their panic buy pure essence, it might go from 2 to 6 GP. I mean, that's still a triple your gold return, but you know.
Donks. No, that's a really good thing, and I did see in feedback people were really happy that the pure essence was getting a bit of a sync, so that's really cool. Quick question, if you can answer it. Not sure. I don't want you guys to give too much lore away, but who are the Shield Guardians and the Rift Guardians? What do they do? Like, what are these creatures in the mini game, and why are they so important? What do we need to do with them? By the way, I should say these images are, these images are placeholder images. We're gonna update the kind of images, the models in the game, but these are the kind of images that we're going off of for now. So on the left, you can see a Shield Guardian. On the right is a Rift Guardian. Tell us, what are these mysterious creatures, guys?
So I think like officially their species, I guess, is referred to as Rune Guardian. Because they're actually made out of, you know, pure essence or rune essence a lot of the time. Some of them carry this like rift inside them, and their mission is just to protect the rift, and that's why they carry it inside, which they can attune to different ones. So for example, that one I think is Mind, maybe? The orangey one. But they can have different colors inside, like the blue one is water, etc. Their mission specifically in the minigame, though, is the Rift Guardians will kind of attack abyssal creatures that are trying to break through from the rift that we're trying to close. And so it will just try to attack, you know, evil NPCs, I guess, the abyssal creatures. While the Shield Guardians are there to just protect. So they don't attack anything. They just protect the Great Guardian so that he's kept alive, essentially.
Nice. Awesome. I'm really excited to get to know more about them and things like that. And I'm assuming if it, you know, passes the poll and things like that, we'll be able to learn a lot more about these mysterious creatures. So I think we also have a concept image of the arena itself. West, would you mind talking a little bit about the process of creating this arena and kind of what was involved? It looks fantastic.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, this is just a basic sort of layout plan. It's kind of the process to sort of create one of these before you do any sort of environment work, just to make sure that you have a good idea of how much space is going to be needed. You get a good idea of the specific assets that are going to be needed for the mechanics to work out, and just so everyone's pretty much on the same page with basically how everything is in relation to itself. The actual layout itself very much resembles pretty much how it was in the ideation pitch. It has like the main important elements. So the Great Guardian is the octagon surrounded by the square in the middle. Effectively the grid there as well, as I'm just trying to sort of replicate the tiles in the game, and the actual larger white square around it is actually the size of our map files themselves. So obviously ideally if you're just using one file, it's good to try and get all the important stuff just in the one file. I imagine this environment will go out a little bit further. By the by, for this you're just kind of just looking at mechanics and how everything works, and as well I'm sort of using colors as well here, just to sort of point at things that are going to be interactable, and just using like classic colors that we use in our editor. So things like NPCs, they appear as yellow, scenery that's interactable, like that sort of light blue, and then just the white is the walls effectively. Yeah, just sort of trying to still resemble Runecraft in a way, you know, trying to look at the altars. You know, they've got those big stone pillars. So in terms of actual scenery, that's sort of the angle we're going to go at. In terms of architecture as well, I'm sort of leaning towards a Greek look. I won't go too much into the theming because we're going to keep that as a bit of a surprise. But yeah, this is just a basic layout. We do have some other images that I'm excited to show you in the future once they're all finished. But yeah, it's starting to come along quite nicely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, I really love the layout. Next question. Oh, sorry. No, you go ahead, Husky.
I just gotta say, the concept art is looking absolutely amazing for this. Like, when people see the thematics and where the story is going to take it, I'm quite excited to see players' first reactions to that as well.
Yeah, shout out to Mod Jerv for the concepting. It's all coming along really nicely.
Absolutely. Did you guys take any inspiration from the Great Orb project or RuneSpan? So I saw this come up a lot in player feedback when we published the blog, but for those who might not know, the Great Orb project was a mini game in the Rune Crafting Guild in 2008. RuneSpan was a rune crafting update in around 2012. and I saw a bunch of comparisons coming up. So I wanted to know like your experience with these and if it was something that you looked at from a design perspective.
I played it a bit back in the day. There is some similarities in the fact that you're going to altars, but the actual gameplay loop itself is completely different. With the Orb project, you were sort of put up against other players, so it's like a team versus team. While this is more of a work together against an evil. I don't think we looked too heavily at them when thinking of what to do. I can't quite recall.
No, I personally don't know those updates very well either. But from what I've understood, they kind of drastically changed the skill, and that is not really what we're trying to do with this minigame. Obviously, what we're doing is introducing, some of the rewards are impacting other runecraft methods, but we're not in any way trying to overshadow those existing methods, but rather enhance them via this minigame.
I've got a note as well from Kieran. We're not seeking to capture what GOP or RuneSpan did. Runecraft is a really prestigious skill in old school. We're keen to not undermine the skill's prestige. So we're basically on the same page in regards to that. But a very interesting point that it got brought up in feedback.
Yeah. I would definitely say avoiding RuneSpan, because maybe the actual design of RuneSpan wasn't too bad, but at least the balancing of it and how it basically just nullified all other training methods is not something that we're seeking to do.
Cool.
Yeah,
Moving
I think
on
that's
to the
something.
next question. Oh, no, sorry.
I think there's a question about that later about XP rates, and I'm sure we'll cover it then. But I think that's all I'd really know about RuneSpan. I never played either of them. I certainly didn't look to any for inspiration, given I don't know what they are. And if there are any similarities, maybe that's just two developers at two different times thinking about how could we improve RuneCraft and coming to similar things. But I don't honestly know if there are similarities. I know that Elena did a lot with the certain nitpicking of the designs and the more intricate details. So, yeah.
Lore-wise as well, it kind of makes sense if they were to be somewhat similar, because obviously it's set in the same universe, right? And the origins of runes and Rift Guardians and all that stuff is the same, and the Abyss as well in both games. So it's natural if there are some similarities.
Alright, next question. The blog says that the Guardians of the Rift will be accessible to limited account types, such as like skillers and 10 HP accounts. Can you confirm whether Temple of the Eye will be possible to complete as a level 3? Has it been designed with this in mind?
Yeah, that's okay. I'll go. So I've been predominantly working on the quest for this, and it's something that we are considering as part of the design to allow, as part of the quest, for a player to get a teleport to the center of the abyss where the Dark Mage is. Current design is sort of at this specific point in the quest. As long as you have all the quest items you need on you, you get a free teleport there once and only once, because we don't want people being hung on a quest state and just like repeatedly getting a teleport to the center. It makes sense for the purpose of the quest as well, why we're doing it and that stuff. So it's not just random teleport. And then there's another part of the quest, I think, where you need to go back. So there's like at that specific point, it's also the same again. And I think there's a bit of funny dialogue around why that happens and stuff. The problem is that we haven't really got restrictions in place for people to just leave on 10 HP accounts. They decide they teleport in, just don't want to progress the quest. And at that point, it's like, well, maybe we should do a design where it's like, if you botch the first attempt, you can pay like 100k to redo it or something, because we really don't want to have an instant and repeatable way to just change up the meta and circumvent going to the abyss through the Dark Mage. But I'm also not a fan of just like that sort of weird forced interaction either. So yeah, it's been taken into account. It's a very niche thing with level 3 skillers. It's not a direct demographic we're trying to target, but it is something where we're looking at this quest being available sort of earlier on in the player's journey anyway, right? Where similar to like players might be doing Sea Slug if they're wanting to get into early fishing, players might consider doing this quest to get into a bit of early runecraft. Iron Men aside, and maybe not having the pure essence, that is one of the goals of this. So even without the level 3 skiller considerations, having players have to run through like they level 70 creatures. I know they can certainly hit more than 10s. Doesn't seem like good gameplay, which is again why those exist.
Thank you. It's awesome that at least we've considered it in the design process. So speaking about XP rates, and I can see the chat is talking about XP. Everybody's talking about XP rates for the minigame, of course, because it's rune crafting. So I wanted to ask you directly, what kind of XP rates do you envision Guardians of the Rift sitting at? And especially for different rune crafting levels, can you just talk us through like your vision in terms of XP?
Sure. So I remember, I mean, a little tangent here, but you know, that's what I do. But back when I did the Hallowed Sepulchre, I remember there was a line in the blog that said something along the lines of, this will be slightly more XP per hour than Rooftops. And players looked at that and went, okay, so maybe like 60, 65k? Because, you know, RD's kind of at that 60k mark, maybe 70k tops. And then players were able to, you know, get, if once they practiced quite well at it, 75, 80k was quite normal. And then if you become like a master at it, especially with like alt methods to force certain instances, it's like 100k, and people are like, oh my god, that's not what you said slightly more. So the one thing I've always said since that point moving forward with blogs is we want to have a lot more transparency about what XP rates are, but we also don't want this to be seen as a pull for XP rates, right? Because it's quite damaging if we put out a blog at early stages of design and go, okay, this is going to be 45k XP per hour, and then players come back and say, hey, wait, it's 55k, you need to nerf, or it's 40k, you need to buff. When realistically, at early stages of the design, we haven't even gone through our own internal playtesting, right? We haven't gone through this step to think, okay, now that this is the minigame we've got, what XP per hour should it have? And if that's too much, so say, for example, it's so complex that this isn't fair, for example, Runecraft, that it's like 100k, unless it's 100k XP per hour, maybe we need to look at, you know, making it less complex, and that sort of thing. And it's just trying to be transparent about that. So with that in mind, the ballpark we have on the blog is saying, essentially, this should be more XP per hour than ZMI. And the players go, oh, well, you just kill a ZMI. ZMI is pretty much one-clickable with Runelight anyway. It's very much just follow someone to the altar as long as they're there, maybe eat a food every now and then. It's probably the most XP per hour you can get runecrafting while doing, say, like second monitor, like as your second monitor content. Like you're doing Netflix, so you're just want to train runecraft, you'll do this. You don't want to pay too much attention. You'll get to the altar, you'll click it. Whereas like Zaya is also that, but it's a lot slower and even more AFK, right? So this makes sense to us, at least on the team, that this should be more XP per hour than ZMI, right? With that in mind, there's a lot of talk about lavas, right? So I know, especially on like Reddit and stuff, there's been, why does Runecraft need to be a slow skill? Come on, like break the meta. Like lavas don't need to be the best and most efficient thing. And okay, like let's just say that theoretically we do that. And this minigame is 100k XP per hour. Are you ever doing anything else? We've essentially killed all other Runecraft content in the game with this one addition, because not only is it the best XP per hour in the game, it's also probably going to be the most fun method of Runecraft if our design goals are true. It's going to have a bunch of alternative rewards, it's going to have a unique pet, and it's going to be money that you're gained instead of doing lavas. And players go, yeah, that's great, we want tons of stuff, we want tons of XP, we want tons of money, but I don't think that's necessarily true with the enjoyment of a skill. I mean, I know that there are still some people out there who say, oh, I hate Slayer. I absolutely detest Slayer. Slayer is one of the slowest skills in the game, right? It only gets quicker than Agility and Runecraft once you get to very specific block lists and repeatable barrage tasks and tons of endgame gear and that sort of stuff. But for the most part, like if you're just a more casual player, you've got a whip, you're like 80s combat stats, you're just whipping your tasks and stuff, you're probably only getting like 20k XP per hour in Slayer, right? And the truth of the matter is, Slayer just has a more engaging like loop of training it than Runecraft does, right? I mean, Runecraft is, no matter what, exactly the same. Go to bank, withdraw essence, do a tedious run to an altar, and get barely anything for it. And that's kind of the problem everyone has with Runecraft. They're like, this is boring, so I want it to be fast. And what we're proposing alternatively is, well, we can't really make it fast and just make a bunch of other content obsolete. But what if we take that bit that says it's boring and make it fun instead? Right? That's our hope with this. And with all the XP rates aside, people go, oh, it's going to be dead if it's 60k XP per hour and I need to focus. Like, that's our ballpark. It could be a bit more. It could be a bit less even. But we're also looking with this update to introduce a colossal pouch, a ring of elements, all of which will make lavas slightly more XP anyway. So that's 75k XP for lavas might end up at the top end being 85k, maybe. I haven't really done the calculations on it fully. But that slight buff gives us more of a reward space to play around with this update. And on top of that, this might actually end up being more XP per hour than lavas for someone who is not good at lavas, right? Lavas has a ton of other requirements. And I think even like when I tried my first hour or so getting to lavas, I was getting like 50k XP an hour, 55k. And there's a lot of things you mess up with, like, oh no, I forgot to take a binding necklace out the bank and getting into the rhythm of that. And I forgot to repair my pouches. There's so much more sort of micro sort of perfections to get lavas to that top end, and it's that top end that we're not touching, right? As far as this creeping on it. For someone can probably get more XP than lavas in this minigame, because this minigame is more obvious sort of mistakes, right? It's like, oh, I didn't take a good rift when it opened, or oh, there was an opportunity to go mine a bunch of essence that I didn't pay attention to. I didn't take that opportunity, so I got less XP, right? There's lots of more clear sort of player decisions in this, rather than just forgetting to withdraw something from the bank, or not being precisely tick perfect with, I need to load all my pouches in one tick and click the altar at the exact tick that it finishes rune crafting with my next load, and all this sort of stuff. So anyway, that's our general spiel about XP rates, right? Like, I know players are going to want more, they're going to want it to be faster, but in truth, like, it just should be more fun, right? And maybe we'll look to do more Runecraft content in the future that takes things that people liked from Guardians of the Rift and maybe discard parts that people didn't like. And I'm sure we'll get tons of feedback on this moving forward, right? We're still early stages of design. It's really hard for us to give a good estimate on XP until we've really got in front of us, really playtesting, and even then, I'm sure players are going to come out with like some undiscovered method to get like an additional amount of XP per hour that we then need to stop and review, right, post-release. Like that always happens, you know. So yeah, it was a long ramble about XP rates. It's kind of how I feel, and especially like that also seems to be how a lot of the team feels, right? We had a long discussion about it yesterday, reviewing the sort of feedback that you all gave. So yeah, someone else can take the next question.
I love your rambles. It's great.
Chat, we're on your side.
Fantastic
Sure.
response. Yeah, we were just watching the chat like, yes, God tier take Husky, awesome. Right, I'll just move on to the next question, but we kind of already answered that with Husky's take. Is the intention, or was the intention ever to be the Winter Todd of rune crafting? Do you think that this minigame solves all of the player problems with rune crafting? Or is it its own separate kind of thing? I think you touched on the fact that you just wanted rune crafting to be fun. So can you just kind of give us your take on that? What do you think about people comparing it to Winter Todd and other minigames?
So I think like the biggest thing with Winter Todd is exactly what Husky was saying, that it kind of just takes over the whole skill. There's usually not much point in doing regular fire making when you can just go Winter Todd and make money instead of burning it up. Quite literally. So yeah, we just don't want it to take over the whole skill. It's a supplement to the skill, not a replacement.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of I mean, it's unfortunate because I don't think the intention for Winter Todd was to completely kill fire making. Or at least from what I remember, it wasn't. It certainly did, and I think if we were to do that into any skill, I suppose we're kind of fortunate it was fire making, because it was already a fairly limited skill anyway. But yeah, we're trying not to make that a mistake in the future.
We already touched on this, but just want to clarify, how do the XP rates sit in comparison to existing methods? So Lava and ZMI, can you just give a quick rundown again on where you think this sits between them?
more than ZMI, more than anything that's Zaya, that's super AFK, obviously. Less than Lavas, and more than like say things like Wraths and Blood Runes, because like Blood Runes if you're crafting true Blood Rune Altar or Natures, right? Because those are ones where you're certainly looking to go for the money, right? I mean, I think is it Wraths are like 2 million an hour or something, maybe just less, maybe 1.8. You know, that's not money that we're trying to compete with in this mini game at all, right? And maybe Wraths will be even more money per hour with a new Runecraft outfit. That was kind of the hope, was to put a bit more of a reason to get some more money by training your Runecraft quite high. Obviously, you know, players might end up doing it a bunch and Wrath runes come down, but they'll only come down to a point where people stop doing the activity because it's not worth the money, right? Yeah, gotta look into it for that sort of stuff, but yeah, that's what it should hopefully sit. They're all ballpark estimates. And don't worry, this isn't supposed to be Sepulchre levels of super hard. I know people have said, like, make a Sepulchre for Runecraft that gets a ton of XP. We're not quite looking to do this. It's a bit more open to casuals, but we're also taking a lot of learnings from, it's not just going to be Wintertodd, as simple as it was, and a lot of the things that people liked from Temperos, like random things that you need to keep an eye out and look for, things that we're looking to do, make it more engaging, as well as a lot more player choices. I think that's the thing. It's not going to be difficult to do it, but there might be a lot of like, ooh, do I go for that or do I go for that? Which probably will be boiled down to someone coming out with a YouTube video guide that you read and says, do this, don't do this, do this, you know? But I'd like to think there's some more mastery that good players will be able to do. And I think that Elena was as well quite into having people be able to like 1.5 tick mine if they're good enough to do it and stuff like that on top of it. So, yeah.
If it's feasible, of course. It kind of just depends on the balancing, because the way I see it is I would love for people to put in that extra effort and have that be rewarded a bit. But if that takes away from other people, or if it's, you know, too much of a gap between do it or don't do it, to the point where it's just not worth doing if you're not doing it the perfect way, then I don't want that. But I would love for there to be some sort of like tick manipulation, or some sort of like kind of sweaty method, if you will, of just putting in some extra effort and gaining a bit of extra XP per hour for that. One way to balance that is, for example, by just allowing, you know, like maybe you only get 1 essence per time you do it, but you can mine it like really close to the portals where you need to leave from. So maybe you do save some time if you do it perfectly, because then you don't have to run so far away to get more essence, essentially.
It's cool. I like the fact that the minigame will reward more conscious decisions made by the player. I think that having that means that it rewards people even more for just paying attention and playing appropriately. I'm actually going to skip the next...
Oh,
sorry.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just gonna say that like one of the there's something called design pillars, which is basically just like our goal for the design, that we kind of just write up at the start of a project. We look back at it underway to make sure we don't lose our way in the project, essentially. And one of those that I had was kind of, when looking at the minigame itself, was I want there to be a level of randomness, but not to the point where it's frustrating. And I think that's something I looked at Temperos for, because you have, you know, the big fishing pools that spawn, or the big fish that jumps up that gives double fish when you fish from it. That's a really good way of doing randomness, because you can kind of tell when it's going to spawn. And you know that it's going to be in one of like 4 spots or something like that, which means you can prepare for it. But it's also random, so you need to pay attention, and you could easily miss it if you don't. That's a really good way of doing it. So I'm looking at, you know, little mechanics to kind of enhance the gameplay a little bit by paying attention like that.
Love that. Can you guys tell the players a bit more about like how the XP rates are balanced when it comes to pre-development, during development, and then post-balancing? So we have touched upon this already, but just want to give the players a bit more insight about like why we can't give them exact XP like graphs and illustrations before stuff has been actually developed and tested, and then how open are we to balancing when it actually releases, if it passes the poll and things like that.
Sure. So obviously we're quite early in development. We've barely just started. And what we have at this point is a ballpark. We have an estimate. We know where we want it to sit-ish. But the reason we can't say specifically it's going to be this amount of XP per hour is simply because we don't know all the little tiny details that kind of affect this yet. We don't know how long a player has to run from the point of like starting out to getting the essence, combining it, running to the altar, and returning, which is the gameplay loop. Like, we don't know how long that's going to take yet because it's not made yet, and all those kind of subtle little things is what adds up to the total XP per hour, really, that we need to figure out. And we're not going to know specifics until it's basically ready to go. But, we can keep, like, refining it and keep trying to make it, stick to that goal that we set initially.
There's also a lot of factors. Like, first of all, it's a team game. I know someone in chat was asking what's the difference between solo XP and team XP. So there's way more factors at play. Like, what if the player fails the game, right? So say we make the game really hard and players fail often, right? It could then be really different XP rates to someone who succeeds a lot, right? We're probably not to, but just to throw an example. I mean, traditional like skilling is super easy to estimate. Like take fishing, ignoring tip manipulation. You fish every 5 ticks. We set the percentage chance at this level. We set the highest percentage chance at 99. You can literally just interpolate and say, if I want the XP per hour to be this, it's going to be 30k at level 50, and it's going to be 70k at level 99. Bish, bash, bosh, done. Super easy to give, and a very specific amount, right? Same even like rooftop courses, right? There's a set amount of time we set to do the animations and walk around and do. Super easy to estimate, right? That's not possible with something this complex, especially with a lot of mechanics early on that we're not sure of, right? We've talking about like shield batteries and charging up the guardians and mining the essence, and then we could literally implement it, come to test it, and be like, this mechanic actually feels pretty shit. Let's change it, scrap it, or like, do something else that makes it better, right? Like there's just so many things we just don't know, and I think that's the interesting part, right? We're gonna have to wait till play tests, and we're probably going to get a bunch of feedback from a lot of people in the team who all have different opinions and have to make what we believe is the correct decision as a team, right? So, yeah.
It always comes back to that point you had about like we're trying to make it fun, and if we have to scrap something because it's not fun, then yeah, that's fine. But yeah, that may affect XP rates, obviously.
Hell yes, I love it. Fun comes first, guys. But chat is memeing on the fact that you said a bad word, Husky. You better apologize to chat right now. Alright, so...
I have better things to do than apologize to chat.
Next question. So it looks like there's a rewards rift and a rewards shop. So I was wondering if you could talk a bit more about the two elements. Like, why did you decide to make some rewards random and then some of them are purchasable? What was the kind of design consideration for that?
It's basically just so players can time cost it. So let's say you want to go for the outfit, right? The new Runecraft outfit. If I were to go for that, after the game's been out, I could kind of estimate how many like pearls I can get, which is the new currency from the Rift. How many pearls I can get per hour, because that's going to be like something you get quite at a steady rate, similar to the scales. Is it scales? No, spirit flakes at Temporos. You can kind of estimate like how many you're going to get, and we aim to do the same here, which means that then you can kind of figure out, okay, how long is the outfit going to take me? Instead of having to fully rely on this RNG goal. Other things we're more happy with being more RNG related. And there's also the element of where does it fit lore-wise. I don't know how much we've said about this, but the Wizards of the Wizard Tower will be somewhat involved. And they are by nature they tend to be more aligned with Saradomin and that kind of side of things, while as the reward rift is more aligned with the Abyss, and we have the new item, the Abyssal Needle, and the Colossal Pouch. They're both very much abyssal things, which fits better with the Rift, so that's why it comes from that, while the outfit is more, it's human-made, it's wizardry, or wizard-like. So that makes more
Wizardy.
sense to come from the wizards. Yeah, it's wizardy.
Yeah, I think there was also, like as you said, kind of like Temperos. We quite like the reward sort of part of Temperos. You stockpile all these resources. For us, it's elemental and catalytic points or energy or whatever you want to call it. You need one of each. I love the idea of reaching into a Rift Guardian or a Portal Guardian or whatever you call it, and like seeing what you pull out of the Abyss. And I also like the idea of like that's essentially the pool at Temperos, and the Abyssal Pearls are like the Spirit Flakes, I think they're called. But then imagine there's just a shop to spend your Spirit Flakes on, right? Because there's some rewards that are more RNG and some that are pretty, easy to calculate how long it will take. I think it just adds a bit more fun and flavor, and who knows what else you might pull out of the Abyss, right? All these items that could get lost there sounds quite fun.
Yeah, and also it solves the whole Wintertoad crate problem, where everyone just fills their bank full of crates, and then it gives just a more usable way of claiming your reward.
Awesome. It's very magical kind of reward system. I love that. Next question is about the new pet. So just can we touch on why we opted to go with a new pet rather than adding a role for the existing Rune Guardian pet?
Sure. So we had this discussion yesterday, actually, when going over the feedback from players and stuff. So we're a bit back and forth about it, because on one hand, we feel like this content deserves its own pet, in the sense of we have strong faith in this being good content, and we think it's going to look amazing, so why wouldn't you want, its own pet from this? On the other hand, we've also had the feedback that this is more like, it's not really a boss, it's more like a skilling activity. We already have a rune crafting pet, which is the Rift Guardian, so why not get the Rift Guardian from Guardians of the Rift? So we definitely see both sides. As a team, we agreed on just offering the pet as a standalone thing, but obviously it's being polled, so we're leaving it up to you guys. If you want the pet, then vote yes. If you don't want it, then vote no. It's as simple as that.
I put out a couple tweets about it, right? And I think by the way people responded, they're like, "Oh, Husky doesn't get it. He's being abrasive and stuff." And I think I just want to ask a question to get an answer, right? And I think the big one is people didn't like the Soul Wars pet, period. And it's a minigame. And I think that we put a label on Guardians of the Rift as a minigame, but it's not like Soul Wars, it's not like Castle Wars, it's more akin to like Zalcano, Temperos, Wintertodd, in that it's a legit skilling activity with its own training method. So to us, it kind of feels like it should have a pet. And I think the more I delved into it, to like communicating on Twitter, reading Reddit, is there is no consensus from the community either, right? Some people will say there should only be one pet per skill and everything else should be transmogs from that pet, right? Which, if we go with that solution, there's going to be people, and I know there are people who like had all the hallowed marks for a Dark Acorn for the Dark Squirrel, but sucks they never got a Squirrel, right? So there's this kind of useless reward that they've consistently gained for and nothing for them. But there's also that element of like, well, if it was random and rare, they might not have got it anyway, right? I think there's still something magical to the whole getting a pet from like a more like, I'm going to say casual player experience. I'm just going to say I'm not pet hunter. That's probably more accurate to what I'm trying to say, right? Where you go, oh my god, this is the one pet that I got. And oh my god, it's my pet. It's one of the 3 pets or one of the 2 pets I've had, and this is really great, and I feel really super connected to it. And I think just like I think that's diminished when you reuse an existing pet. And I think ultimately that's why we've put it to the players, right? We've said we're going to have this abyssal pet. I think, or is that a poll as well? I can't remember which way we've done it, but it's put to voting anyway, to see what you guys think. I think there's a lot of also. I kind of said this in Discord, and this could come across really wrong. Like people are gonna take this the wrong way, but I think a lot of time the frustration as a developer is people just don't tell us why they don't like something, but they give us like another excuse of why they don't like it, right? They're like, oh, minigame pets shouldn't be a thing. And I'm like, is the truth that you just don't really want to do this content for a pet? I mean, it's a very selfish reason, but it's still a valid reason, right? You know, and I wish like people would be more transparent about that stuff. Because like the weaker reasons of like, oh, we already have a Rift Guardian, we shouldn't have a second one. It's like, okay, well, we'll make an Abyssal pet. That fixes that problem for you entirely, right? There's a lot of other things that's like, there's like soft arguments, and like some people I wish would just be true. Like, well, I don't want to do Runecraft again. I've already got like 200 mil Runecraft and a Runecraft pet, and you're making me go and do a mini game again to train Runecraft, or like, hey, like I've already got even just 99 Runecraft and I don't want to get any post 99 XP, right? I mean, they're kind of selfish reasons, but that's still a valid perspective for someone to feel, right, when they're thinking about what time they want to put into their game and stuff. So, yeah. And as far as like pet hunters and stuff wanting pets, I mean, I recently watched the Sebe cast. Aiza was on that, and I kind of agree with that sentiment that like, as a pet hunter, surely you should want more pets to come into the game, so that there's more things you can flex about being a pet hunter, when realistically, I think a lot of people are just getting really close to finishing that grind. And I think they're getting really attached to the whole, I'm at 46, I'm at 47, or even just anywhere in the 40s, or I've got all pets, and it's like that idea of uncompleting the grind or making it one step further away. I could be wrong. And I think there's also a lot of other valid reasons that people might not want pets that I might not even discussed here. And I agree that a pet isn't for everybody. I think it's just, as I said, it's a whole big sort of like discussion about people have got a bunch of different opinions of pets. They can't agree with each other. And going back to what I said, that's why we're putting it into voting and just saying, hey, like, let us know what you think.
Yep, to add on that, we have updated the blog today, just like an hour ago, so check out the updated version of the blog. We have a question basically asking if you want an Abyssal themed pet or not. And then there's a second question underneath that, which is basically talking about a transmog that would work for the existing Rune Guardian pet and would turn it into a Great Guardian kind of version of it. So we'll skip the next question because that was basically it. Yep, we are going to be adding an option for a transmog. That would be, that's in the blog. All the information is regarding that in the blog, so go check it out. Next question is, can you talk a bit about what the True Blood Altar is, for those who might not know it? And will it be accessible via the Abyss? Was a really popular player question.
Sure. It's always like, are you going? Am I going? So the True Blood Altar, some of you may already have seen like the entrance to it in Mauritania, because with the release of, I believe it's the Sins of the Father, there was a new dungeon with this temple under. It looks like Runecraft temple entrance, but you can't use it because you have no talisman to get through, and somehow your Runecrafting cape just doesn't work with it. Anyway, what we're doing is essentially introducing the Blood Talisman so that you can access this altar, and behind it you will be able to craft blood runes. For the lore hounds out there, you probably already know, but the altar in Zeya is kind of a fake blood altar, if you will, kind of artificially created and not a part of like the original ones, which is why this is what we call the true blood altar. And yeah, we don't want to access it through the Abyss just yet, just because we'd rather make it viable to get there, or to runecraft the actual, like going to the actual altar. And we're open to like opening up that tunnel more, adding more entrances or agility shortcuts just to make that a bit more viable. I think that in the first place, that's what we should look at rather than having everything go through the Abyss. But one of the big things about this is, and what we really wanted to, the whole reason we're opening up that altar is because a lot of people are saying that they are struggling getting blood runes, particularly Iron Man. Obviously mains can just buy it off the GE, but Iron Men are consistently just wanting more blood runes. We've seen, people wanting blood rune packs, but we feel like, we could technically just make you spend your money like a main would, or we could literally use the skill that was made to craft runes to give you those runes. So it was very sensible to put it behind rune crafting, to kind of just aim at increasing that amount of blood runes you can craft per hour. So to make rune crafting more viable than Shopscape, essentially. And I think that with the blood essence that came from Nex, combined with the outfit and the access to the true blood altar, we can get some pretty hefty amounts of runes per hour.
That's the plan, at least. I mean, looking at the Abyss, players can already tell us how many runes per hour it is. It's 6k if it's double the rune, 3k if it's single the rune. Like, just googling what Rachel Runes of the Abyss is and look at the wiki. And there might be slightly more efficient players, like, oh, it's actually 6.2k Husky or 6.5k. Cool, we get it, right? That's the rough rates. And it really is just a case of, do we feel like that's enough? Is that too many? We're not really sure. So we're just going to see what the route to the True Blood Altar is. We'll work out how many runes per hour it is, and then we'll determine where we want that to sit in combination with everything. Because even at the time of making the job, we didn't know, like, 60% on the outfit enough. It feels like about right, but I think looking at, like, Wrath runes to just about 3 mil an hour or something, and Nature's like 2.4 or something when I had a look at it, and it was like, okay, that feels good. It gives us a lot more variables to control with how quickly you get these blood runes, right? As Elena said, we can make shortcuts to get there. And it kind of just, I think that going through the Abyss for everything, and denying all sort of open world travel and other teleport options and other reward space, I think it just kind of takes away. There could very much be a point where we sit at where we say, okay, we're quite happy with people crafting 2.5k blood runes an hour, which, by the way, probably not, because that's Zaya. The point is to craft them faster. And then we say, we'll open up the Abyss later. So you're in that point where, like, either the Abyss is too strong, or the Abyss is dead content anyway and not worth it, and the only reason would be to not lock it through Sins of the Father. But I think, to be honest, the True Blood Altar should be locked behind Sins of the Father, because I think the Abyss bypassing the player's journey of discovering that altar, right, in the Mayerditch libraries, I think that's something that just feels a bit more thematically appropriate. Happy to be proven wrong if players want the Abyss open. Yeah, I just think that, I mean, the whole quest locking stuff, that's our game. Literally, our game is content locked behind content, grinds locked behind grinds, and I think that's where people say, like, the grind becomes boring when there's nothing to grind for to do another grind, right? It's why we're actually adding a quest to this. I know it's not talked about a lot, it's not hyped in the blog, I haven't seen a lot of feedback about it, but the whole Temple of the Eye quest is something that as a team we feel like we should have done with Temperos, right? Temperos is an activity that just exists. You go there when you get 35. You don't know why, you don't know what, you kind of talk to the fisherman, you get a story about a raging sea, and I don't know, I feel like it just would have been so much cooler to have experienced Temperos as part of a quest. And then, like, the sailors are like, oh, thank you, you kept us alive. If you ever want to come back and fight him again, like, be introduced to it better. That's what we're doing with Temple of the Eye. We're building it into the story. We're building it into existing content, the Wizards of the Wizard Tower, a mystery, a story, and then that's something that can maybe be built upon in the future, right? And I mean, I don't know if it's confirmed yet. It's definitely on our list of potential to cut, but if we get time to do everything we want, I even want doing a soft version of the mini game be part of the end of the quest, right? Like a non-forced, like a kind of forced tutorial, but completely in character for doing it. Like, oh my god, this rift has opened and we need you to close it. I think that'd be super cool and immersive. And then it comes in, it's like, thank you. The rift will open again. If you could help us out, that would be great. And I know that some people are gonna go, yep, I don't care. I'm gonna hold my spacebar button. And Husky, I know you spent like 2 weeks writing dialogue and making interesting characters, and we don't care. But I think that that's what makes it a game, and not a clicking simulator, right?
So you need that context.
Pop off, Husky. I could listen to you all day. All right, we only have a couple of minutes, but I really want to get to some of the Runecraft skilling outfit questions. So quick fire. What will the XP rates look like for the True Blood altar in comparison to the one in Zaya? Rough, just quick fire, like higher, same.
Our goal is higher.
Higher.
There you go.
Okay, cool. Check out the blog the updates of the blog has a little bit more information on that question. We already touched on the next one, so I'll skip it. Will the runecrafting max cape allow access to the True Blood altar? We had a discussion on this in the feedback sessions.
Yes.
Yes. I think we spent like 10 minutes discussing it, and then we realized, oh, the talismans are tradable, so it doesn't make sense to lock anything behind anything, because it's just a one-day time gate for people who will just buy it. So yes, the max cape will allow access to the True Blood altar if the stuff passes. So Mod West, would you be up for discussing some of the design for the new runecrafting skilling outfit? We have a picture of the runecrafting skilling outfit as well to show. Talk us through this
definitely.
wonderful piece of art.
Awesome. So I know there is some words from Modjerv, the artist who made this. It might be good to just read her thoughts out first, because it might look like I'm just copying what she's going to say. So her thoughts were when bringing in like iconic runecrafting shapes and elements into the design. So thinking of wizard hats. Something we noticed as well is the the shape of the actual rune essence. I don't know if this is like it's kind of obvious when you look at it from a distance, but it's like the rune essence actually looks like a wizard hat. It's got like decking around it, so taking that sort of wizard hat shape from the actual rune essence itself. The tiara itself, sort of giving options to still use runecrafting items while using the outfit. It would be kind of silly to, not be able to use your tiaras while using runecraft outfit. So sort of having the ability to combine those into one item. So it just doesn't change the way you train. And also changing, like, because these are the tiara there is the either the catalytic or the elemental tiara, and so we're looking at the actual shape of the talisman itself. So taking the sort of arms that come up around it and sort of applying that to the tiara shape. And then finally, sort of looking for colors that will match the runecraft cape effectively. Something I've done in the past a lot with some of the outfits, construction outfit, the new fishing outfit, just making sure that they fit with the skill cape, as they're likely to be worn together, and if they were like super clashing, it would look pretty bad, wouldn't it? So that was effectively the goals of this outfit. I also got together a bunch of references as well, looking back at medieval attire, but also looking back at the actual Runecraft Great Orb project outfit, because again, that's while we don't want to reference RuneScape directly, there are players that feel a bit nostalgic about that, and there are some cool shapes there. So sort of taking that sort of overcoat shape, going with a hat with some form of ornament on it as well. So just sort of to reflect reference back to that original design, and yeah, just sort of try and make some cool fashion scape that could be mix and match for other items as well. Yeah.
Fashionscape it is. It is so cool. I've seen so much positive feedback about it. It's wonderful. And we also have some really cool recolors that we've managed to sneak into the updated blog, which we'd love to show you. Do you want to talk a bit more about the themes of these recolors, and especially like I think it's coming from the rewards rifts and why we decided to go with that, everyone?
Well, so just to go over the actual having the recalls there to begin with, something that comes up a lot is everyone looking the same. So everyone wearing graceful, for instance, and just to sort of get ahead of the game there and just give a bit of color variation, just gives the players the option to customize their own outfit and also mix and match with their own different items that they like to wear, doing certain things. Especially if you have like a max cape, the stark red or whatever colors you've change it or combined it with might not go with a specific outfit, so just having more options, it's just better, it's just nicer in general. As for the theming of them, I believe the idea was to pull some of these from the actual Orbital Rift that are more themed to a sort of evil, rather than getting those from the wizards themselves.
Yeah, that's part of it, but also because the outfit is buyable and you'd buy that first, that is a kind of like a consistent goal that you have, or at least like roughly how long it will take. But then the cosmetic upgrade to it is slightly RNG. Obviously, you could get that while trying to go for the outfit, which in which case, yay, good on you.
Yeah.
I also like the theme of them kinda being like, the way I see it, the first one is like just created by the wizards probably, and maybe the blue one is as well, as they are kind of, they already wear blue, right? The wizards of the Wizard Tower. And the red one
So
kind of
the-
reminds me of the Abyss a bit.
Hmm.
The green one kind of fits as well because runes and just Rift Guardians in general are very tied to Gothics, and that whole ritual of balance that I'm not going to go into yet, but that's a thing in the lore, so look forward to that.
I love it. It's beautiful, and I'm seeing the chat just pogging off. It's so cool. So yeah, thank you guys, and thank you for sticking around a bit longer on the stream just to talk about that.
Happy to.
So yeah, I think we're gonna wrap up there because I don't want to go on
Can
for
I-
too long. But oh, yeah, sure, go ahead.
I want to steal 5 minutes because there are 15 people who asked questions in our chat that someone captured, and I'm going to give you answers, okay?
Alright,
Kahootle,
quick
have you
fire.
thought of using Blood Essence to increase XP rates in the minigame? Not sure, don't want to play with the mechanics of the minigame too much. He says, as it sits right now, Blood Essence is underpriced and underutilized. We hope the True Blood Altar will help that. Captain Alpha Walrus, would Dale Essence work in this minigame as well? No, we answered that in there. We're going to keep it simple, nice sync for Pure Essence, etc. Could be something in the future, perhaps, based on feedback, but current standing, no. Can we get an Eternal Binding Necklace as a reward too? We discussed it. We were concerned about how we're already elevating, or removing some of the pain points with Lava Runecraft. We didn't want to do too much. Potential rewards based in the future, we weren't entirely opposed to it, just thought too much for now. And we have a lot of rewards for this content already. Data kill. Would this be regarded as a boss like Temperos? So high scores for it as well. We might. I'm not entirely sure. Our reward system's a little bit different. We'll come back to that on
It's
some point.
currently not in the plans. Same.
Paddlemar, love it. How compatible is this minigame for Ultimate Iron Man with respect to rewards? Is it Temperos stacking like, or will it be Wintertodd? It's like Temperos stacking. How would making combinations runes work with the Elemental Tiara if it were added? I don't know. Maybe it consumes the Tiara. I mean, the element... No, the Tiara is just for accessing it. You can't use Tiaras, Fire Tiaras to make runes. I think we go with whatever Fire Tiaras do for using it. I really like Goodwin512. I really like the design, the idea, and the rewards. I do have concerns, some questions related to Pure Essence. Is it a requirement for the minigame? Do we need Pure Essence? Roughly how much we use? Since it's so available early game, it might be difficult for a lot of accounts to mass it huge. It's not difficult for early game accounts to mass it because Pure Essence is dirt cheap. That might not be on the case of the release day, but yes, you're going to need a bunch of it. If you're an Ultimate Iron Man, you better find a stackable resource. If you're an Ultimate Iron Man who doesn't like PVM, Essence Implinks might be your friend. For regular Iron Man, you might need to wait for a boss that drops a bunch of them, but Ultimate Iron Man and regular Iron Man accounts, I'm sorry, you limited yourself. Lord Drakan, will this mini game, where will it be? Wizards of the Wizard Tower, Mage Training Arena. We're still debating about that internally, and it depends how much time we get, but it will be one of the both as a portal that takes you to somewhere else. Board Guy 2007, is the plan to utilize designs and themes similar to the Mage Training Arena? I remember this was discussed last time. Guardians, that area are including some kind of image. I think it'd be really cool, that style. We're using Portal Guardians and Rift Guardians as part of that. We plan to explore on the lore of what Rift Guardians are, but the actual area might look different to what you might be expecting from MTA. Baratho, will the Abyssal Lantern have any effects outside the minigame? No, it would plan to be just within it. But we agree that firemaking being more useful is a good thing. Wasting XP, does the lantern glow differently with different logs? I'm sure the artists can give us a different recolor depending on which log you use. Daklaws Duif. In 2009, update was slightly increased runes per essence crafted based on the player's runecraft level. This applied to levels between the fixed multi-craft levels. Would you consider implementing this in addition to the minigame? It'd be nice if just normal RC was a bit better compared to Shopski. I agree that it would be nicer if we redid that. I also heard a suggestion recently that why does 99 give like 10 air runes and 4 fire runes? I think stuff like that could be overhauled, but that's not part of this project. Sorry, maybe something to look at for the future. Varel123, would the outfit affect the tasks that are like certain amounts of nature runes in one go? The intention for us is to not remove the level requirements of the diaries with this update. Thanks, we forgot about that. You might have got away with it if you hadn't asked the question. Jerry Wan, would the new tiaras be storable in stashes that require one of the existing elemental or catalytic tiaras? I don't know how hard that is. If that's easy, sure. If it's not, no, I'm too lazy. OSRS 07RS2, can you add some form of rewards that Pearson Skillers can have a use for pouches without making a visit to the Abyss? ATM, you need to be on Lunar to officially use pouches. CBA going to the Abyss, every pouch is great. No plans currently, but I kind of agree that we could have something in the reward shop that allows you to use them without degrading, but I also like the fact that content is locked behind other content, and that Lunar Spellbook makes that nice, so I'm not sure. Good question, though.
There's also the lantern that could prevent it within the game, right?
Yes, actually, we have a lantern. We might be able to help out in the game itself. Billy Joel Businessman, are you considering adding combination runes to the rewards? I'm dreading the lava grind on my iron. People don't do the iron grind for lava runes. We might have some combination runes on the random rewards you get as part of it. I don't know. We're probably gonna have a bunch of runes on that drop table. Skipping 45 because it's not relevant. Someone complimented me. Thank you. What else? I think that's it. I think that was all the questions.
Are any of
yeah.
the rules
Oh,
storeable in the
disclaimer.
POH?
Everything I just...
I think the
all of those answers were my opinion. I did not have time to consult everyone in the cast here of the team, so disclaimer.
So next time, Madrid needs to get you a beat before you do one of those.
Yes, please. Let's get the Husky beat on.
I'm hoping somebody takes that and then like transforms it into some kind of piece of art. So yeah.
You know, someone's writing a blog that captures our Q&As recently. You know, that's a lot of work I just added for someone.
Me. Okay, well, thank you so much, Husky, and everybody on the cast today. Elena, Wes, Husky, you're the best. If that is everything, if there's no other things that we should go through, I will wrap up here. So yeah. All right,
Thank
guys,
you for hosting.
Exclamation. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
Exclamation mark, bugs and issues for Shattered Relics, bugs and issues. You've got exclamation mark, Guardians of the Rift to check out the blog that we were just discussing on the stream. And then you've got exclamation mark, game update for our latest game update. It's the Shattered Relics changes. Hopefully you love it. Tell us you love it. We make this game for you guys. Like, hope that you have an amazing time in the league. So yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And thank you everyone in chat. You've been amazing. And we will see you next time. Thanks.
Sorry, someone wanted to see a rat.
Bye.
This is Sprout.